My dad grew up in North Augusta, South Carolina. He was born in New York. He was the oldest of 3 sons in their family. My grandfather was a medical illustrator, kind of a unique profession actually, especially back in the 1930s, 1940s. He went to Johns Hopkins actually, and he learned how to draw what was going on in the operating room. So he would draw what was happening in terms of anatomy and other things. Very unique profession. He actually was the founder of the medical illustration program at the Medical College of Georgia, and that's why they moved to South Carolina, Georgia area. My grandmother was a very gentle woman. She was very much of a homemaker, and even though she was from the north, she very much adapted to the life of the South, and kind of very much of a Southern type of lady, loved making iced tea. I don't think she ever raised her voice. I think that was kind of how my dad also came very much into his own personality. He had a real gentle kind of spirit about him. So I remember him today on Father's Day because he had a kind of a kindness and a gentleness, kind of a very good presence about him. Something that he instilled into his 3 sons was, I truly believe that he taught us always to respect our mother. That above all, that he would never tolerate in any kind of way, any kind of disrespect towards our mother, which I think is something that she very much appreciated, but also helped us to grow in great love for our mom, but also for our dad. I don't think he raised his voice. Really, when I think going back in time, I think as I get older, I realize I'm probably a little bit more like him than I ever thought. He liked to read quite a bit. He liked classical music, things that now that I'm in my 50s, I'm kind of finding, wow, I'm becoming maybe a little bit like my father, which I think is something that we all probably dread in some way or think, oh, it'll never happen, but it kind of does sort of happen. And I'm very grateful for that because it makes me realize that in his absence, because he's passed away now 15 years, actually this month, that in his absence, he has a whole new presence. That his presence is still very strong, that he may not be here in person, but he's very much present to our family, to me and to my brothers, in the memories that we have and in the spirit, the way that he taught us, because teaching is something, an example is really how we remember people. You know, we never remember people really for the gifts that we received. I couldn't tell you what gifts my father gave me in my life, but I can tell you that he gave me a good example and really taught me how to have the gift of character. So I'm very grateful to him for that. And I think that that's today what we celebrate when we remember the Eucharist, when we celebrate the feast of the most holy body and blood of Christ. We remember that in the absence of Jesus, he left a presence, that he physically was not there any longer, and the apostles who sat around that table at the Last Supper, that they really couldn't imagine what life would be like without Jesus. After all, they had followed him for 3 years. They left everything, and they followed him. They gave their lives to him. But look at what he gave back. He gave his whole self. You see, when Jesus gives of himself, he doesn't just give part of himself. He doesn't give part of his body and part of his blood. He gives an incredible self-sacrifice. He gives 100%. And when Jesus gives us himself in the Eucharist, he doesn't give us only like what he wants to give us. He gives us his best. He doesn't say, well, I'll keep my best for myself and I'll give them everything else. No, Jesus gives us totally the best. He gives us 100%. So as we remember today and hear in our gospel reading about the gift of the Eucharist, it's really our chance to think about our own relationship with Christ, our own relationship with the Eucharist, with the body and the blood, with the gift of his presence. You know, he said, "He who eats this flesh and drinks my blood." That was horrifying to the people of the biblical times. They had no concept what that meant. What is he, a cannibal? What is this, the eating body and drinking the blood? They had no concept of that. But what they did not realize was that in time, it was the gift of faith that would draw them in. It was the gift of desire. So that he invited them to be a part. He said, come, as we hear in St. Paul. St. Paul reflected on saying that he was one body, but he shared for all of us. We're all partakers in it. We're all partakers because we come forward for the gift of communion. Now, there's something very beautiful and visual about receiving communion because we do so with hands that are open or with a mouth that is open. So it should speak of our desire for God. It should speak of our desire for receiving a better relationship with him, for becoming all that he wants us to be. You see, when we come forward for communion, it does not matter what mood we are in. It does not matter what our own maybe level of faith is. But what does matter is Jesus is perfect in that gift of the Eucharist. And our own desire should be to also be perfect, to grow, to be more like him. Sometimes I'm asked, Father, why is it that we have to fast before communion? I don't understand that. And when we fast before communion, is it an hour before I receive communion or is it an hour before Mass? Well, that's kind of like a little bit of a tricky question because it depends on how long the homily is going to be that day. But also, there's kind of the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. And the spirit of the law is I'm going to fast before I receive God because I want to make room for him in my body, in myself. I'm going to make room for him. And receiving communion isn't like taking a piece of candy. It isn't like, well, we ate dinner and now I'm going to go to the restaurant and maybe there'll be a bowl there and I can take a mint on my way out the door. I'll pop it in my mouth and leave. No. It should be the most intimate moment of the week when we receive God. It should speak of our incredible desire. In that moment when we receive him, there should be like a calmness or a silence in our own heart. A calmness to realize that we are meeting the one who created us, who created the entire world. We are meeting the one in the gift of the Eucharist who gave his life for us, that he gave himself, not again part of himself, he gave his whole self on a cross. And that is a gift that we can never underestimate. I ask and I pray that we as a community can have an incredible respect for the Eucharist. That we as a community can grow in that love for the Eucharist, that we don't take it lightly. That we realize that that meeting should be the most important meeting of our week. It should be the most important meeting of the week when we take the Lord in the most intimate of ways. You see, he's invited us now to be partakers. He's invited us to be disciples. That means students. That means learners. That means we're on a journey of perfection, which we won't really achieve until we get to the kingdom of heaven one day. But he sent out an invitation to each one of us, and our amen is our yes. It is our RSVP. It is our chance to say, yes, Lord, I want to be all that you have called me to be. Yes, Lord, I want to grow in the gift of my relationship with you, in the gift of my faith. It is a faith that begins on the day of our baptism. It is a faith that continues long before our time on this earth is over, because our days here are kind of numbered. But it is a faith that continues for all eternity in the kingdom of heaven.